as we've talked about in some previous series, Quest does a lot of different things. We help out in different areas, and our main go-to-market is how can we help. One of the areas we've been developing over about the last, I'd say, 25 years, late 90s, early 2000s, a little bit before that as well, is infrastructure services, right? The physical infrastructure of what helps IT organizations tick. So today we're going to be covering, when we say IT infrastructure, there's a million different marketing terms around the industry. What do we mean by IT infrastructure? We're going to also talk about, hey, where do we start? There's a lot of different things we're going to go over today. Got a couple different building blocks we're going to highlight, some services we're going to go through, but where do you actually land the plane? Where do you start? So we're going to talk a little bit about, some assessments, some engagement techniques, how to ask the question, who this is relevant to within the organization. And then what does the process look like? What does implementation look like? What does post-sales support look like? What are the options that, as you're having these conversations with customers, what's that going to look like? Main goals for today: want to get you comfortable with understanding at a conversation level IT infrastructure capabilities that you have, at your disposal, really through partnership with Quest. How to incorporate that with existing offerings. If you're typically a data center person or a telecommunications person and you're having those conversations, how do you synthesize, with what you're currently doing? We don't want to change the whole world here, reinvent the wheel, but how do you bolt this capability onto what you got going today? And then again, a little bit of our sales and consultative approach to this, like all things Quest. How can we help? Would they like to work with us? How can we change the game if we're in a competitive situation? And hopefully, again, skills you'll gain are, how to start the conversation, how to work with us to customize what the client's trying to do. And then, hey, really simple ways to effectively communicate what we're doing in infrastructure services. So excited to jump into it today. And again, if there are any questions, we love questions. Please go ahead and type them into the chat, and we'll get to those at the end of the overview. So what is physical infrastructure? How do we define it, right? If you look at the OSI model and 7 different layers, this is really the first layer, right? The physical structure, the fiber, the connectivity, what infrastructure and what all the IT stack, all the network, all the transport, all the applications and the new great performance tools and things that we all love to talk about, from complicated API integration. All of that has to reside on physical infrastructure. It has to be powered by something, and that is at the base level of everything that we do in IT. So super critical to your customers, critical to your partners. It's the baseline for everything that we do. And again, with Quest, our go-to-market is how can we help? So we typically get called in to help out organizations, build that solid framework. Our first entry into this market was around helping some carriers build out robust infrastructure in the Sacramento and Davis area of Northern California, pulling thousands and thousands of miles of fiber around that. And it's kind of continued to grow over the last 25 years. Again, how can we help? How can we, roll trucks to sites? How can we grow out to national presence? What we found in our experience is that this gives us a lot of different areas to grow with our customer, right? We can get involved in their facilities. We can get involved in their environment. We can get involved in helping their facilities teams build out new locations. You get involved in optimizing performance. So there are organizations are trying to get the most out of their IT spend. How do they do that? You got to start with the base level. You got to start with the cabling, the wireless, the access. All of those building blocks are super, super critical to helping organizations enhance their performance. Security and business continuity are often overlooked from a physical infrastructure standpoint. And we talk physical infrastructure, some of the things, we'll get into this a little bit later, are around like video surveillance, managing the monitoring of access control, who's coming in and out of a site. Regulations are changing, management's changing. how people are being audited for who's on their location or who's coming into the location is changing. So security is a huge one. And then also business continuity. Sometimes people can have diverse carriers into a location. They can have diverse like solution providers into a location, but perhaps they don't have diverse facilities into a location, right? The same transport's coming over the same fiber into a data center or the same fiber into that office building. They don't really have diverse physical access to that location. So how do you do that? How do you help them avoid the standard FUD thing that everyone talks about is the backhoe fade, where they cut that fiber line, that location now becomes an IT island, if you will. Cost efficiency always, right? How are we going to optimize what they're doing? People are trying to get the most out of what they have. And then as we're seeing the technology landscape, change very, very quickly, like how are we dealing with artificial intelligence, automatic provisioning, IoT, right? Had some great opportunities in the last couple of months around supporting automation within the IoT environment, self-healing, all that kind of good stuff. How are you helping organizations get ready for that? And then, blockchain and those types of services as well. So this is why people need help with infrastructure. It might not necessarily, be all these at the same time, but the opportunities are going to spark out of these drivers, typically from what we've seen. Reasons why as a partner, you might want to look at bolting infrastructure services onto your services stack is like everything, it can be built out as a recurring revenue model, right? It can be built out from a Quest Flex standpoint we're okay delivering as a one-time, but often we get pulled into these opportunities to support something else that everyone nowadays is subscribing to services. It could be their SD-WAN implementation. It could be their firewall as a service. It could be their data center subscription. It could be their Azure, their AWS. It could be, direct connects to those platforms. It could be anything that is a reoccurring revenue stream. Where Quest is different and where we've been successful is we can build out that capacity. So like a DMARC extension, for example, or a fiber, or adding fiber from one point of campus to another, or deploying a wireless solution. You can easily transition that into a monthly reoccurring charge and augment that with the other services you're already providing. So you can bolt that into your service offering. It's sticky, right? Infrastructure doesn't go away. It gets built, it gets refreshed. People need help with it. It really can help with your retention. There are people providing different services into your accounts all the time. And as much as we all love the growth of the trusted advisor community, that is also, potential competition, right? So if you have that customer relationship, if you're in there, sometimes it's best to make sure that you're the go-to person when new opportunities come up. So if they're looking for a site refresh, if they're looking for, hey, I gotta recable this environment, I gotta drop in some wireless access points, I have to, build fiber between point A and point B, I need to do a long-range wireless shot. All those people who come in and do that may be providing services that you're providing today. So, staying ahead of your competition and making sure that you're supporting the entire customer's IT stack from physical infrastructure layer all the way up to applications really helps to kind of be that go-to person. So that's what we want to make sure we're providing, from a partnership standpoint. We're here to help execute where maybe you don't have capabilities today. And then again, that's kind of that full service IT provider and cross-selling. I know cross-selling, upselling can kind of be seen as a negative term. At least in my world, I see it as a positive. You're there to help address a customer's needs. And the more you bolt together, we're all sales folks here, at least most of us are, you get higher profit margins, the more you consolidate services together. So fantastic opportunity. Everyone needs help with this. Every single client usually has a facilities person, has someone who's dealing with managing their infrastructure at a physical layer. So huge opportunity to help within infrastructure services to your clients. So that's all great, right? All the whys and hows and all that kind of stuff is fantastic, right? Everyone's got infrastructure. Everyone's trying to figure out what to do with it. Even cloud first organizations have to connect to the cloud over some type of physical transport, right? So if you get the feedback like, well, we're 100% in the cloud, it's like, okay, cool, but how do you connect? How do you effectively connect? How do you, how do you manage that connection to the cloud? Always good conversations to have. And then, if they have offices or brick and mortar, that's always a good starting place too. But where do you start the conversation with your client? Some of the best ways we've helped kind of, move from maybe a cybersecurity conversation or a data center conversation, or a product purchase transaction conversation. How do you kind of pivot into a network and an infrastructure discussion? We love doing infrastructure health checks, right? Where we come in and test and tone out the lines, and then we test and tone out, what they have available to them. A lot of people are buying and moving and upgrading facilities right now. A lot of people are kind of trying to do more with the facilities they maybe have. We're seeing interest rates kind of spike up. So buying and building is not necessarily as active as we maybe saw two years ago. We are seeing people trying to do more with their existing operations and their existing environments. So doing infrastructure and licensing health check on their current environment as it's built today is a great place to start. Video surveillance is something that more and more people, everything's on video now. Everybody's being monitored everywhere you go. And organizations are trying to get, more effective ways to do that. And also trying to get more of a single pane of glass for that video surveillance. So we do a review similar to if you participate in our cybersecurity bootcamp, a couple weeks back, kind of a checkup on that current surveillance environment. How are they doing it today? Something we're also seeing a great place to start is traditional heat maps or a full spectrum analysis on a wireless review. People are upgrading their wireless to the latest and greatest capabilities out there. Wireless reviews, we'll run a full synthetic remote wireless review, or we're totally fine sending people out on site to do a full spectrum analysis of the facility. This could be a warehouse. This could be a new retail location. This could be a managed care facility. This could be hospital groups. And patient delivery and care. A lot of wireless is being incorporated into every organization, from financial services to healthcare to government to retail, for a couple different reasons. Some is around patient care. Some is around the whole Internet of Things and monitoring everything at the retail location to monitor transactions. People on site transacting in retail environments are kind of moving away from having a lot of people on site, so they're automating a lot more. And then also in the warehouse space, we're seeing a huge push for automation, and a big key part of that is the wireless environment. What do they have on place? How can they effectively automate as much as they can in the warehouse and infrastructure space? So those are some of the major drivers that we're seeing. And then also the physical infrastructure. So how are people securing these environments? You maybe have less people on site, but even though you have less people on site, you have a lot of assets in those warehouses. You have to securely manage and monitor who's coming in and out of your hospital. Retail locations, from a security standpoint, smile, you're on camera. We are seeing more and more folks look for the ability to manage access control and automate that without necessarily having physical intervention of people at that location. So physical security is another way. Hey, if you're talking to someone, hey, how are you managing the physical security of your site? Can you, is that auditable? Can you effectively export video easily? Do you have a single pane of glass to manage that instance? Do you have a cloud-based controller for all your video systems? Those kind of conversations are a great way to get involved in the physical infrastructure. Probably, last of like, where do we start? And one of the, probably the most prevalent one that we're seeing in the channel right now is the audio visual. And a lot of what drives this is predictability, and ease of use for the end users. So if it's a Crestron system or an automated system or a Zoom room or Teams room, or they're moving from, legacy Polycom speakers or whatever they have on premise to a new, in the ceiling design or drop speaker design or speaker track or whatever it is, automating it and making it very simple for the end user is critical. So what we do is we'll go in and do audio visual assessments for conference rooms and the ability to really host video sessions, corp to corp from organizations. So it could be one site. We just rolled out about a 100 site deployment. It was a Teams room integration where you have to make it very, very simple for the end user. And making sure that, most people using these AV rooms are not technical users. So how do you incorporate that with remote help desk? How do you incorporate audio visual optimization with non-technical people? So we do that, and that's a good way to also get into physical infrastructure discussion. It's again going to touch other advanced systems, right? So audio-visual collaboration tools, and video conferencing. Those are not, plug-and-play solutions. They do take some integration work, but they have to reside on quality and dependable physical infrastructure. So it's good to capture those as well. So, and again, following up on that further, when we are talking about infrastructure services, we're going to get into some of these specifics, but at a high level, these are kind of the different building blocks that we mean, right? So it could be just simple, hey, I need to extend my DMARC. My customer just upgraded from a 200 meg circuit to a 1 gig, and Lumen or AT&T or Verizon or whoever the provider is saying they need it's the customer's responsibility to extend from the vault, to the customer's location. They got to handle that. We can come in and do that, right? We can do boring and trenching, we can do extensions, we can do all that. Data center design and build. We've built 3 data centers of our own over the last 20 years. We know, and we did it in California, which for all of you who are not in California know how, friendly California is to growth and expansion in business. I'll be here all week. Make sure to tip your waitress. So that, we know how to operate within regulations and making sure that organizations can build out capacity for power, efficiency, and getting that done. So we do that nationally. We've done data center design for folks people are still building data centers, and a lot of people who are running out of capacity nationwide for power are having to get creative ways to, host edge compute and assets. So we're getting pulled into more and more opportunities around, hey, how do we build, manage, and maintain this data center capacity? And this is part of what we mean when we talk about infrastructure services. We won't necessarily go through the entire list here, but these are what we classify as building blocks. And what I want everyone on this call to understand is these are customer-driven requirements that have come to us over the last 20 years around, hey, how can you help us with this system? One right here is kind of that Internet of Things, LED smart lighting and smart building management. How do you turn off and automate, chillers for their, chilling their water or heating their water, or HVAC? How do you automate that when people are not there, people are present? How do you automate the lighting when people are there or not present? How do you, get the most out of the efficient environment? That's all powered over Ethernet, LED lighting. You can do a full site deployment and not install, any copper into the environment other than what's powering the PoE switches. So really, really cool power saving initiatives that you can use around, smart lighting and, building management approaches. So lots of conversations to have. Paging systems. We'll get into digital signage. We've got some cool things coming out there in the channel. We've talked about it before in our infrastructure, integrating complex infrastructure and integrated services bootcamp series. But wireless as a service is a huge opportunity for incorporating everything from the APs to the switches to the physical deployment into that monthly reoccurring charge. Really kind of changes the game as far as how people are consuming that type of technology. Point to point wireless, long range wireless shots, right? So you get a long range microwave shot from one location to another. If you got to get to a remote environment, those types of services are things that we can help out with. And then Quest has been pulling fiber and helping organizations with micro towers and cell phone towers and pulling actual fiber and fiber splicing all around the country. So all of these services are national. We roll trucks to locations, and one of the biggest drivers we'll get into around why infrastructure services can help organizations is really that consistent experience nationwide. We've taught you, if you joined us on our first boot camp, you learned a little bit about Quest strategy and how we like to engage. Now, infrastructure services is one of those things that clients have asked us for help with throughout the years because we've been able to effectively and consistently deliver based on what we say we're going to do and what they're asking for help with. Infrastructure services does not have a huge barrier to entry on a national level. And when I say barrier to entry, I mean, Quest is just as an example, Quest has been a Cisco Gold partner for a very, very long time, right? So we've had a partnership with them for 20 years. In order to have that classification with that vendor, you have to go through a lot of checks, right? You have to have certain engineering capabilities on staff. You have certain CCIEs, senior level network engineers, you have to go through a lot of, for the other VARs and MSPs on the call, what it takes to get those vendor certifications. You got to go through a lot of hoops to necessarily kind of get that badge, right? So that's what I'm talking about, barrier to entry. That doesn't really exist necessarily in the physical infrastructure world, right? So there's always someone local. There's always a brother-in-law or someone who can pull fiber or maybe do some fiber splicing or help out at a local level. So you're like, well, Adam, I listened to your story about, Quest changing the game and, taking a very competitive environment and not changing the engagement strategy and not being super competitive. Why are you guys, doubling down and building out these infrastructure services? And the reason is because organizations have a very hard time replicating a positive experience on a national level. We get pulled into opportunities. We do a great job in any region of the United States. We can help deploy, manage, and implement any of these services. Where it gets challenging, and usually when we win, so it's not always we don't win the local job in Poughkeepsie or Nashville, Tennessee, but we typically get called in when they say, hey, I have a couple sites and I'm kind of tired of coordinating with the local infrastructure provider to manage this deployment. Having a consistent project management and implementation across multiple sites is something that Quest uniquely executes on, I believe. That's kind of our big differentiator in this. The barrier to entry, not that hard. If you're in construction or you know a general contractor or two, you can run a couple crews and have a good business. That's, it's great. And there's great people out there who do that. We typically are good at helping to consistently deliver a common experience across multiple sites. That's really where we do well. We operate, and then we operate well in region, in specific one region engagements as well too. So, drilling down a little bit more specifically. So we talked a little about wireless design and implementation, right? So we will go out and do site surveys. As I talked about, we'll do the predictive assessment. We'll do the planning and the design. We're okay with the implementation and installation. We'll help out with the ongoing managed services, troubleshooting. So wherever the customer is in their journey of, their wireless discussions, we can help insert either, hey, we'll help fix it, we'll help build it, we'll help design it, we can help manage it. And then if they have trouble, they have the environment all built up, but they can't get the next latest and greatest connectivity to that location. We just dealt with this about 2 months ago. They built out a fantastic new environment, but the carriers on net, were telling it was going to be $200,000 to build in order to accommodate, multi-gig capacity. So what we did was, rather than, build out and tear up, the ground and, build new fiber out to them, they didn't want to pay for that. We did a long-range point-to-point relay for them. So we coordinated with the carrier, dropped in, got some roof rights for a local environment, and then did a high-capacity point-to-point shot for them. So they had invested on their on-premise environment. Another partner had done that for them. They brought us in to do the point-to-point design. So these are all opportunities if they need help with operations, implementation, and design. It doesn't have to be the full stack. We don't have to do everything. I know a lot of you on this call that are listening to us, you have the ability to do a predictive assessment. You have the ability to do the design, but maybe you just need help operating and deploying assets in a region that you're not in right now. We love to partner like that. We love to help out organizations execute. If you're operating in the Pacific Northwest and your customer needs help deploying something in the Southeast, we can do that, and we can help you meet you where you're looking to do that. Physical security, again, this is kind of drilling down into all the different things that physical security means. For us, everything, access control, biometrics, detecting intruders, automating, like, hey, there's a human body in this region of the camera shot, and there should not be a human-sized person ever in this zone. Automating alert to dispatch local law enforcement, those types of things. These are all things that we can do in the video surveillance and automation standpoint. License plate recognition and capture, facial recognition, all that kind of access control. Who's coming in? Do we know who they are? Does that facial recognition software line up with what that badge we just read? Like, is that person the same person who they're saying they are? And then all those types of services. So again, same as wireless, we can help design this, and then your client can take it to acquire whatever they want. So we can do the design work for them. We can do a design build engagement with them. This is pretty common. We'll put an engineer on their team and go through the design process with them as a contract, and then also help them with the implementation. So kind of a staff aug kind of combo. Or if they know what they want, they just need help sourcing it and implementing it, we do that from an infrastructure standpoint. So you can meet your customer at any level of their physical security engagement. It can be the design, it can be the implementation, it can be the acquisition, or it can be the ongoing services. And these are all things that people are dealing with. People need to know who's coming onto their site. People need to know if it's a campus, if it's a physical location for retail, or hospital groups, or anybody that cares about who's coming into their environment. Physical security, they're dealing with it, and there's more and more regulations coming down all the time that's driving that behavior. So if you need help in physical security, great engineering resources on our side of the house. Some came from the gaming industry, some came from the corrections industry. We can help. We've kind of talked a lot about network cabling and wiring, but there is a ton to do in this space, right? People need to refresh, people need to pull fiber. Sometimes people are upgrading their campus or their core network environments, and they need help auditing what they have. Again, we can help with the actual design. So we have people on our team who can do the CAD drawings, can help with the actual design work, can help with the cable and the drop placement location as a subcontractor to the GC when they're building these out. We can do the documentation for full low voltage, everything around rack and stack, all of these services, this has to happen. Someone has to do this. More often than not, the general contractor might, have a buddy or someone they do business with that maybe doesn't have the occupants of that or the tenant of that environment's. It's not that they're doing a bad job, but maybe they don't understand the business outcome that tenant is trying to achieve. So really good, you guys, and you're all trusted advisors, and get in there and understand what the business is trying to deal with. This is critical. This is critical to getting in there and understanding what that business is trying to deal with, where those cable drops need to go. How are they planning on leveraging their communication systems? Are they having phones on every desk? Are they going soft phones? Are they powering things over Ethernet? Do they need, appropriate port counts? We're working through a project right now. It's a national project where the organization is trying to build out a lot of different environments. This is a huge part of that. You got to land the initial design correctly. So huge opportunity in just getting the wiring, the cabling, and the site planning and the technology design squared away. Telecom construction, similar to wiring, right? But how are we actually, building this? How are they actually building out long range telecom and transport? So if you are working with carriers, if you're working with organizations that are trying to build in new capacity to your clients, we do all of this physical infrastructure work. So boring and trenching, underground and aerial plant design, right? So we'll hang the fiber, we'll bore and provision conduit, between locations. All of this are massive construction projects going on around the country right now. We have thousands of people tied into this environment, helping build out capacity nationwide right now. So if you need help with your carrier relationships, helping to build this out, we are probably working with all the major ones right now that you can think of on different site projects, right? It could be cell tower and microstation integration and 5G capacity. These are all things that we're doing and all things that you can leverage our team to help you with. So a lot of opportunity going on there. We have the ability to help with permitting. We know how to do all that. We have the engineers on staff to help integrate with the site plans and the construction. Huge opportunity. If you're having these conversations with your customer and they're building out new capacity, we can help with that. Now, what brings it all together, right? This is a capability that is kind of a seat at the table for the IT and the IT infrastructure of your organization. So if you're going through a project, if your client's going through a new build, having a seat at the table with the general contractor can save a lot of headaches down the road. So this is typically if people are building out a new site, building out maybe a new, they're adding on to an existing environment, something that's in the construction, or they have a general contractor on staff. This is basically a project manager provided by Quest, who is the technical lead working with you as our partner and your customer to make sure that as they're building out the new environment, this could be an add-on to a retail, add-on to a warehouse, new construction, or add-on, anything that's bringing in a general contractor or an architecture firm or other outside vendors. It's basically representing that, hey, as we're going through the CAD drawings, as we're going through the reconfiguration, how are you planning to power this environment? How are you planning to support the technical needs of the users who are going to be in that environment from a wireless standpoint, from a connectivity standpoint, just from a general, like, hey, do we have enough IDFs in this floor to deal with all the power over Ethernet requirements? Or are you going to set yourself up for pain down the road? You kind of see the five key phases there of discovery, planning, design, install, and test and completion. We manage that end to end with you, and put basically someone who's been in this environment multiple times on the side of the customer, representing their IT needs at that as a program management as a technical program management engagement. So it's a contract engagement. It's something we put in there. It's basically a long-term kind of almost like a staff aug type of a role, but very, very helpful. We've helped manage some large campus redesigns for some major manufacturers and vendors. And we've also helped with some smaller, smaller expansions and, new data center builds and, just regional branch office refresh, those types of things. So always good to have technical program management. Typically, you're going to see that with users, in the couple hundred to a couple thousand space. So a good opportunity there for the middle market. All right, one or two more things here I want to go through as far as building blocks. We've been doing digital signage for a long time, but there are some changes in digital signage, and there's some cloud-based control that's going on. And what we've built out is a partnership with Samsung, where we are delivering digital signage as a service. So what this means is retail locations, folks who are delivering, they want to have, menu boards or scheduling boards or notifications for the people who are coming on site. Basically, you can have cloud-based management of the endpoint, right? So it's very, very simple. If anyone who's run like a Canva type of a platform, you can take those simple digital signage assets and resources and project them from a cloud-based controller. So one of our clients, for example, has about 150 store locations around the US, and we're delivering a simple one pane for them to manage all of those assets at their 150 stores. They can update their menus, they can update their pricing, they can update what they want to be promoting individually, store by store, or create rules to blast that out to everyone. So it's a pretty powerful capability. We're bringing this to market right now. It's powered by Samsung type of offering. They've rolled out, it's called their VXT platform. So any partners, if you want to get in more detail around this, would love to walk through the platform with you, talk about how we're delivering this as a service for the endpoints. This can also incorporate, and why this is part of the physical infrastructure is you got to have drops, you got to have quality installation, you got to have consistent delivery across the US. If you're going, I don't care if you're going one site, one store, or 20 stores, or one hospital or 20 hospitals, people need consistent delivery. So you need that physical, the physical endpoint, right? So we're deploying the physical endpoint and providing that as a service. So it's a subscription for the digital signage. If they want a CapEx, we can do that as well. But then we also do the physical installation and the drops and the connectivity. And we can wrap that all into one deliverable for the client and really simplify it for them. And the cool thing about it is it's the management of it is cloud-based, right? So if they deploy 1 or 200, they can manage that digital signage and that broadcasting messages to those locations from a cloud instance, from a portal, from anywhere. So again, it's kind of that all-in-one package. Some customers want to break it apart, but they get the most out of it from a capability standpoint when you're going down the all-in-one kind of path. So one more. I know we're going through a lot, and I want to have some time for some Q&A as we go through here. We also, just to let you guys know, this is an example of what we can do from a physical service kind of all-in standpoint. So we talk about QuestFlex. We do this across multiple technology stacks. So anything that we do from audio-visual to the digital signage to this is an example of physical security. So, and this is an option that those of you who are familiar with Verkada, it's a cloud-based video surveillance. And and access control provider. Very cool group. Got some, big time backing from folks like Sequoia and others, and they've been doing a good job. We've partnered with them, and we're a deployment partner with them. So they deploy things all over the country, and we help them from a physical installation standpoint, dropping the cameras, installing it, all that kind of good stuff. We decided that, hey, this is something that we can incorporate, right? So kind of taking this QuestFlex story and incorporating it in the physical security service. So we take environmental sensors, access control, the actual camera systems, or the visitor management system, and we deploy this on a monthly reoccurring basis. And it includes, basically all of these bullet items per endpoint here, right? So we're gonna do the installation, right? We're gonna do the assessment and the configuration. We're gonna provide support for 5 years, rolling trucks out to swap out devices that maybe need to be replaced, anything like that, right? And we're going to basically bundle that service all together. And then, we add, additional options, right? So if they want to include, if they need help with additional drops, right, we can do that. If they need additional storage, we can do that. Trying to make it really, really simple and clean for a monthly reoccurring charge for clients to, consume technology in a prescribed way. Again, we do this across the board. This is something that Quest has been doing for 30 years. This is just one example of how we've skewed up a product or an offering to help with that type of delivery. Again, and I wouldn't use this as something like, and just from a strategy standpoint, what's worked for us. This is an example of how we can help, and this is an example of getting your customer to maybe change their thinking around how they can subscribe or consume technology. These are great. I don't think we've ever sold one SKU exactly the way we plan to. So use it as hey, this is an example of what, I can do for you. Would you like to talk more about this? It always evolves. So I'd love to say that we're brilliant and we come up with the perfect SKU that's going to land the plane every single time. We're not, but this is a different way. This is something you can change the game. This is a way you can help your clients, think about infrastructure services in a compelling way to get you in the door to have that conversation. So, no, we're wrapping up here. Got Q&A coming up here, but key takeaways, like how do you engage? What are the essentials of infrastructure services? All the physical assets, how people are leveraging the base layer to modernize their environment. Layer one is critical, right? How are they going to do that? Making sure it's reliable and efficient. Every customer is dealing with this. Ask them how it's going. Get to that why, what they're trying to achieve, and we can tailor something with you to accommodate that. And again, everyone is dealing with this. Every single customer you have, whether you're talking to them or not, is dealing with physical implementation, site management, getting people and equipment and resources deployed at a location. I know it's not as necessarily as awesome to talk about as AI or IoT or any of the high-end buzzwords out there. Those are fantastic, and we love talking about those too. But those have to operate on something, and those have to exist somewhere. So it's great opportunity to talk around these assets as well. So that's the end of the overview around incorporating infrastructure services that I have for today. And Paul, did we have any? I saw a couple questions popping off, and I know Brian was in the chat as well. But any questions from the team here, or anything that came up that we'd like to address?
Yeah, I have some great questions and like you mentioned, Brian kind of addressed some of them, but if you have other parts to add, that's great. So Kevin was asking, are you utilizing Quest badged employees for on-site work, or are you contracting out to local firms?
Yeah, so great question. A little bit of both. So we have national teams. We're at about 16 delivery centers. We call them delivery centers in the United States. So think like NFL cities, and a couple other sites as well. And then, so we have assets nationally. So on an infrastructure job, you're always going to be dealing with a project manager and a delivery manager from our physical infrastructure team. We will source local labor, and we have a great pool of resources that we work with for 20 plus years that are vetted and on our approved subcontractor list. So we will leverage subs, but we're always managing the project, at a minimum managing the project, oftentimes rolling the whole thing out, but we will leverage subs in certain regions.
Great. And a couple more questions. And if you have any other questions as Adam's talking, feel free to leave them. We'll add that to the list. James was wondering, is there a rate for site surveys?
Yeah, a couple of ways we can do that. It depends on the service. Usually, minimum site survey, dispatch is going to be around $500 ballpark to dispatch someone out on site to do like just a walkthrough. But we've bundled that into other services too. We've got creative on that. Those are typical site surveys for like hey, we're going to go out and walk a location. But if you're looking like at large, like a couple thousand square feet, like we just did one last week, a couple thousand square feet, like warehouse location, and like a spectrum analysis and a post site walk after implementation, we'll bundle those into like delivery, right? And usually have that as part of the offering. It really depends on how the customer wants to consume that. Some customers are like, yeah, give me your best engineer to come out on site, and do a proactive walk, and they're okay paying for it. Some are like, no, I just need a heat map. I don't really want to pay for a site walk. Can you guys just do a heat map and we'll do a post implementation site walk? We've done that too. So really up to how the customer wants to pay for it.
Great. Steve was wondering, whose cameras do you use for video surveillance?
We used a lot. So we talked about the Verkada offering. We've used Bosch, Axis, license plate leaders. There's a new one, Rhombus, I think, is one of them. We can get you a full vendor list that we've used. Happy to follow up with that for you.
Okay. Kevin was wondering, can Quest be cost competitive for infrastructure work? You have a vast portfolio just in the infrastructure area.
That's an interesting question. Can we be competitive? So it goes again, kind of back to our strategy around, there's always going to be someone cheaper. Last year we did about 40 million in infrastructure services. It's a good portion of our portfolio. It's a good business. The people who work with us like to work with us. We're not the cheapest. We never will be. But again, kind of back to our strategy, do people see a value in working with Quest? Do they want to work with us? If they do, that's great. If they kind of want if very cost conscious, totally respect that decision. But what we found is it does cost a little bit to get a good quality product. And if they'd like to work with us, we'd love to work with them. So I don't know if that's probably a very politically correct answer. Yeah. I guess the direct answer would be like, we're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive. We don't do the whole 5 vendor pass through markup game and charge people $1,000 an hour type of a thing. So I guess a little bit in the middle of the road and relationships, and do what you say you're going to do, and then build from there.
I think that's a great breakdown. Chad was wondering, what is the min and max company size for PSAS?
We don't really have a minimum. So that's a great question. So from and this actually just came up this morning. We had a partner come in who had I think it was a 5-user environment, and they're like, well, it's probably too small for the user environment, but their requirements were significant, and it was over what we were going to be providing them was over a couple $1,000s a month. So we have it's really Our minimum is based on the cost per month and the MRC or the one-time job. So from a partnership standpoint, we typically wouldn't engage in anything on a one-time engagement that's below $5,000, right? So that's just onboarding a new customer and all that kind of stuff that goes into that. It's kind of usually a loss if we're not spending at least $5,000. It's a hard one. Or if it's about $1,000 a month MRC, we try to stay above that on the monthly reoccurring charges. So if it's a 10 user environment and they need a couple cameras, they need some cloud storage and some access control, and they like to work with us, we're happy to engage a couple sites or one or two sites or even a single location. For example, we worked with a homeowners association, a couple hundred houses in a neighborhood, and they wanted license plate capture and aerial video surveillance. It was a non-gated community, but they were having some break-in issues, and they wanted to be able to provide local law enforcement with, hey, who was coming in and out of the neighborhood at a given period of time. So we worked with them, and it was about a 7-camera installation with some connectivity bundled in. It was over $1,000 a month. So we were happy to work with them. Was it a huge company? Are we taking down millions of dollars with them? No, but they wanted to work with us. They were kind of clear on their objectives, and we were able to clearly provide how we could help back to them. And so it's not I'm sorry for the long-winded answer. It's not a per user limitation. It's really, hey, does it make financial sense for both parties to work together? For us, it's about $1,000 a month and about $5,000 one time.
Great. That's helpful. I have an agenda over here. I don't know if you know this, Adam. I have this agenda. It's very helpful for me to kind of look at it and make sure I'm staying focused and organized. The one part of the agenda, which is unnecessary, is there's a section here that says, be sure to tell Adam it was a great presentation, because it always is. And I always learn a lot. So thanks. Really, really great presentation today. But real quick, everybody here, you're all, the opportunity exists to win the $200 Amazon gift card. I don't make these decisions. I don't make these random polls. We bring in the professionals for that. Darcy?
Well, technically, I don't make the decisions either. It's the
Well,
random.
the random. Yeah.
It's the
I guess
random machine.
the random
And
machine makes the poll. Yeah.
today, our random machine pick, hold on a second, the thing is spinning. Tim Martin is today's lucky winner for the $200 gift card. And we'll be reaching out to you after the webinar just to let you know that will be coming to you and how you'll be receiving that. So congratulations, Tim.
Congratulations, Tim. Good stuff. Thanks for joining. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Real quick, if you are interested, we have another webinar coming up that is going to be on May 22nd. That will be about demystifying application development and system integration projects. You can register for that on the website. And again, if you want to check out more, Adam and I do a podcast, The Incident Report. We'd love to see you over there. Adam, any final thoughts? Anything I'm forgetting?
Nope. If you'd like to contact us or anything like that, again, check out, we have a partner portal. Links are here in the description. And yeah, if you got any questions or want to have any specific follow-ups, we put this training together specifically for partners, and anything that you guys have questions on, please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. We'd love to talk.
One quick thing, Mark, yes, I saw your question. Mark asks, is there a recording of this? Mark, there is, and that will be uploaded to the partner portal. So you'll have access to all the webinars there on the partner portal. So
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Great. So Adam, Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for organizing this. Really appreciate it. And everybody out there watching, thank you for joining, taking the time, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.